Why family called me a failure. Until one stranger changed everything. Part 1. My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 34 years old. If you asked my family to describe me, they would probably smile politely before saying, "Claire is still trying to figure out her life." It was the sentence they had repeated for years, even after I had built a successful career with my own hands. To them, my younger sister Emily was the daughter they proudly introduced to everyone. I was simply the quiet one who never seemed impressive enough. I never hated my sister. In fact, Emily and I had shared many happy childhood memories. The distance between us wasn't created by jealousy, it was created by constant comparisons. Every achievement of mine was treated like a small hobby, while every achievement of hers became a family celebration. After years of hearing the same comments, I stopped trying to prove anyone wrong. Instead, I poured my heart into the only place where I truly felt appreciated, my workshop. I owned a small restoration studio in Willow Creek, Vermont. My job wasn't ordinary. I restored antique furniture, historic woodwork, and family heirlooms that people believed were beyond saving. Every cracked table, faded cabinet, or broken rocking chair carried someone's memories. Bringing those pieces back to life gave me a sense of purpose that no office job ever could. I wasn't becoming rich, but I was building something meaningful, one careful repair at a time. My mentor, Henry Collins, had taught me everything I knew. He often reminded me that damaged things deserved patience instead of replacement. Before he passed away, he left me his tools, his workshop, and one piece of advice that stayed with me every day: strong character is built the same way good craftsmanship is, with honesty, patience, and steady hands. Whenever life became difficult, I remembered those words. One Saturday afternoon my mother called and invited everyone to dinner. Her voice sounded unusually cheerful. She told me Emily would be introducing someone special to the family, and she insisted that everyone arrive on time. I agreed without asking questions because I already knew what the evening was about. Emily had recently started dating someone, and my parents clearly hoped this relationship would become something serious. I arrived carrying a homemade apple pie. The house looked more elegant than usual. Fresh flowers covered the dining table, expensive dishes had been taken out of the cabinet, and soft music filled the living room. My mother had always believed first impressions mattered, so everything was perfectly arranged. The moment I walked in, she thanked me for bringing dessert but quickly disappeared to greet another guest. It was obvious where her attention belonged that evening. A few minutes later, Emily entered the house with a tall, polite man beside her. His name was Ethan Carter. He greeted every family member with genuine respect instead of forced charm. He shook my father's hand, thanked my mother for inviting him, and even complimented the meal before sitting down. Unlike many people I had met at family gatherings, Ethan seemed more interested in listening than speaking. Dinner began with casual conversation. My parents asked Ethan about his work, his hobbies, and his family. He answered every question respectfully while making sure nobody felt ignored. I mostly listened, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. For a brief moment, I thought perhaps this dinner would be different from the others. Then I noticed something strange. Every few minutes someone at the table glanced toward me. My mother did it first. Then my father. Even Emily looked in my direction before quickly looking away. Their expressions weren't angry. They looked worried. It reminded me of people watching a glass vase sitting too close to the edge of a shelf, hoping it wouldn't fall. I quietly checked my blouse for stains. Everything looked fine. I wondered if I had forgotten someone's birthday or missed an important family announcement. Nothing came to mind. The uncomfortable silence continued until Ethan smiled warmly and turned toward me. "So, Claire," he asked politely, "what do you do for a living?" It was such a simple question. Before I could answer, my mother gently placed her fork on the table and interrupted with a nervous laugh. "Oh, let's not talk about work tonight," she said. "We're here to enjoy dinner." For a second, nobody spoke. My aunt forced a small laugh. My father suddenly became very interested in his plate. Emily smiled awkwardly before changing the subject. I looked around the table and finally understood. They hadn't been watching me because they expected me to cause trouble. They had been waiting to stop this exact question from being asked. For years my family had quietly introduced me to people as someone who was between careers or still figuring things out. They had never actually asked whether I was proud of my work. They simply assumed my profession wasn't respectable enough to mention. Normally I would have smiled and remained silent, just to keep the peace. But something inside me had changed. Earlier that morning I had finished restoring a 150-year-old grandfather clock that everyone else had considered beyond repair. Watching that clock begin ticking again reminded me of something my mentor had always believed. Truth doesn't need to be loud. It only needs the courage to be spoken. I looked at Ethan, smiled politely, and answered before anyone else could interrupt. I restore antique furniture and historical woodwork, I said calmly. I help preserve pieces that families want to pass down to future generations. The room became completely silent. No one laughed. No one spoke. My mother looked uncomfortable, as though she wished she could erase the conversation before it continued. Ethan didn't react the way my family expected. Instead, his eyes widened with genuine surprise. He studied my face for several seconds before asking another question. Wait. Did you say restoration? I nodded. His expression immediately changed. I've been trying to find someone named Claire Bennett for over a year, he said quietly. This time, everyone at the table stared at me. I've been trying to find someone named Claire Bennett for over a year, Ethan repeated, still looking directly at me. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood him. My mother froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips, while Emily looked back and forth between us with a confused expression. Even my father stopped eating. The entire room had become so quiet that I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I smiled politely and asked, I'm sorry, have we met before? Ethan slowly shook his head. No, but I've seen your work many times. My family's historical foundation has been searching for the conservator who restored the Hawthorne Manor Library. We contacted several restoration companies, but every expert kept recommending the same person, Claire Bennett. Unfortunately, we could never reach you. I felt genuinely surprised. I never received any messages, I answered honestly. Ethan took out his phone and opened several photographs. They showed antique furniture, carved wooden ceilings, and a 19th-century staircase I had restored 2 years earlier. These pieces are famous among restoration professionals, he said. Whoever completed this work has extraordinary talent. Then he looked at me and smiled. I didn't expect to meet you here tonight. No one at the table knew what to say. My mother forced a smile and quickly interrupted. Claire enjoys little projects, she said casually. She's always been creative. Ethan looked at her respectfully but answered without hesitation. Mrs. Bennett, restoring nationally recognized historical pieces isn't a little project. Very few people have the skills to do this kind of work. The silence became even heavier. Emily quietly lowered her eyes toward her plate. My father looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't disappointment or embarrassment. It was surprise. For the first time in years, it seemed he was realizing there was a part of my life he had never bothered to understand. Ethan continued speaking, completely unaware of the tension surrounding the table. Our foundation is beginning the restoration of Ashford Hall, one of the oldest estates in the state. We've been searching for the right conservator for 14 months. The committee unanimously placed your name at the top of the list. He smiled warmly. If you're interested, we'd be honored to work with you. I didn't answer immediately. The offer itself was exciting, but I was still trying to process everything that had just happened. My family had spent years introducing me as someone who hadn't found her place in life. Yet a complete stranger knew my work, respected it, and had spent more than a year trying to find me. Dinner eventually continued, but nothing felt the same. The conversations became shorter, and the cheerful atmosphere slowly disappeared. Every few minutes, someone looked toward me before quickly looking away. This time, however, I wasn't uncomfortable. I simply remained calm, answered Ethan's questions about restoration, and enjoyed the rest of the evening without trying to prove anything. When dessert was served, my mother quietly asked me to help her in the kitchen. As soon as the door closed behind us, the smile disappeared from her face. She folded a dish towel and spoke softly. "Claire, I don't think accepting this project is a good idea." I looked at her, surprised. "Why?" She hesitated before answering. "Ashford Hall is where Emily and Ethan are planning to host their engagement celebration if everything goes well. I don't want people focusing on you instead of your sister." For several seconds, I simply stared at her. I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. Even after hearing everything Ethan had said, her first concern wasn't my future. It was making sure I stayed in the background. I took a slow breath and answered respectfully. "Mom, I'm not trying to take anyone's place. I'm simply doing the work I've spent years learning." She sighed but said nothing else. I drove home later that night with the windows down, thinking about everything that had happened. My mentor's old words echoed in my mind once again. Strong character is built with honesty, patience, and steady hands. For years, I had remained silent because I believed peace was more important than recognition. That evening taught me something different. Staying humble doesn't mean hiding your gifts. It means using them with gratitude while allowing the truth to speak for itself. The following morning, I opened my email and found an official invitation from the Ashford Historical Foundation. It included detailed plans for the restoration project and a personal message thanking me for considering the opportunity. I read the email twice before smiling. Without hesitation, I typed my reply. "Thank you for your trust. I would be honored to help preserve Ashford Hall for future generations." As soon as I pressed send, I had no idea that this decision would change not only my career, but also the relationship with my family forever.